Welcome to the Krista Escamilla Show.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for the Krista Escamilla Show. I appreciate you sharing your time. I know it's precious, and thank you for choosing us. We are so excited about today's guest. We are visiting with Dr. Scott McDowell, and Dr. McDowell is the president of Lubbock Christian University. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Krista, thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be down here in Midland.
Oh, this is fun, and I look forward to this conversation and hearing your story, because that's what we're all about here. Is we're here about sharing the stories of West Texas, how people got here, what they love about it, and of course I want to talk about LCU and what makes LCU so special.
Yes.
But first, let's start with your story. How did you get into education?
Well, it's an interesting story. I've got a mentor that used to say you get into higher ed through back doors, side doors, and alleys, and that was certainly my route. I really through mentors and through influence. I got into higher ed. Actually, I ran a residence hall. It was my first job ever at a university in Nashville, Tennessee. And that was just to get my master's degree paid for.
Okay.
So I did my undergrad in a small college in West Tennessee, and then moved to Nashville, was getting my master's, and had an opportunity to get a free, they paid me room and board. And
we like free.
Tuition.
That's
nice.
right.
That's right. And then through that, I met one of the most significant mentors of my life, a guy named Carl McKelvey. He was the executive vice president, so he was my boss's boss. And after I'd been out doing ministry for about 7 years, he called me and said, I want you to come back and I'll get you your doctorate and I'll teach you everything I know about higher ed. So that was in 1998, and really see the hand of God in it in hindsight especially, but that's how I got in, and it's just been progressively more responsibility since 98.
Isn't it amazing how one person can change the trajectory of your life, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's all God's plan. And did you know when you met that mentor, did you know the impact he was going to have on your life?
No idea. And I knew he was a godly man further down the path than I was, and he had a life in terms of a spiritual life and a quality of relationships that I knew that's something I want. And I want to be like that. So that was compelling to me.
I love that. Did he give you one specific piece of advice maybe at that time that still sticks out in your mind?
Yeah. Well, Carl's great line is it's all about relationships. So he is spot on, and he modeled that. And I always say, Joe Connell's the guy that led my family to Christ. My dad, Clarence McDowell, Carl McKelvey, and then a guy named Chip Anderson that was in my doctoral program are the four big mentors of my life. But Carl it's all about relationships, and it really is. Your relationship with God is number one, but then it's relationships with other people. Everything happens in the context of relationships, and he modeled that even in the way that we work together. It was about having a relationship with him and with the other people on our team, and I'm on a Tuesday morning Bible study that I've been on some kind of a study with Dr. McKelvey for over 30 years.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's pretty cool, and I'm still in it virtually with him and a group of the people that worked with him and reported to him, and they're the dearest friends I've got, just complete transparent relationships. But you get stuff done that way, and it's not about manipulation, but it's caring about the people around you. So that was his big teaching to me and big takeaway. It's all about relationships.
Well, and talk about a relationship that lasts 30 years of mentorship.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is incredible. So from there, you were in Tennessee. Then how did you get your first job as running a school?
Well, so I spent 25 years at Lipscomb University in Nashville, and really went through and kind of what I say is from the dorm room to the boardroom. I really did. I started out in a residence hall, then did 7 years of ministry, and then came back and was the dean of students, and just progressively added responsibility. When Dr. McKelvey retired, I got more and more things, and finished my doctorate. That was a big thing. I always say I went to get a union card and got an education. You really do. You've got to have credentials sometimes to move into areas that you want to.
Right.
But I was really blessed by the education of getting my doctorate in higher ed leadership. But so I stayed there, progressively grew more and more responsibility. And after I'd been there about 25 years, I had a colleague named Phil Schubert. Dr. Phil Schubert is the president of Abilene Christian University. Great guy. And we had worked together over the years on different projects and things that we'd used him as a consultant, became friends. And he invited me to come down to ACU, wanted me to run student life at ACU. And I turned him down one time. And then the position came open about 5 years later. It was the same time that I had been at that institution for 25 years, so you kind of do some soul searching.
Right.
What do you want to do?
25-year itch.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And which is rare to stay at a place that long. But anyway,
amazing. It's awesome.
I said this time when it was open, let's talk, and then, very quickly we made the move to Abilene. So we kind of had the first substantive conversations in the end of June, and by August 1, we'd made the move. And our middle son, Cade, had chosen to go to Lubbock Christian University to play basketball. He's a 6'11" kid.
I don't know if you can tell, but Dr. McDowell is very tall. Yes.
I'm just a mere 6'8".
Yeah, just 6'8".
He makes me look little. But so he was at LCU. The current president there was a friend, and we were very pleased with where he was. And so we moved to Texas. People said, "Did you move to Texas?" Follier said, "No, we moved to Texas just because of this opportunity." But we were just 2.5 hours down the road, and then when the presidency at LCU came open, it was something I'd seen enough of the quality of the institution and had seen it through my son's eyes, and saw the experience was very good. The relationships, again, were very good. The people there, I love the mission, transforming the hearts, minds, and hands of students for lives of purpose and service. And so when Tim went back to Pepperdine, I applied and went through the process, and it became apparent that we were a good match for each other. I always tell people, don't just go to a job because you want the title or you want the responsibility. Make sure that it's a relational fit, and it very much was the case. And we're just so incredibly blessed to be at a place that I think does a fantastic job. We've got great outcomes in terms of what's happening in the classroom, but it's really about those relationships with students. And you're a customer. You've got daughters that are experiencing that. And we're very proud to know those things. Yeah.
Huge blessing. I mean, it has changed their lives 100%. Just like you said, in the classroom is fantastic, but the faith grow, just to see their growth and what they're learning there and the relationships has really been beautiful to watch. And I know that you can speak more to that. I want to talk about LCU. What makes it so special? Because I know, because I've seen it as a parent, but how would you explain it to other parents that are maybe considering going to LCU? Why is it a good fit for their child?
It's a fantastic question, and I really believe it's because we can address the whole person. We know, Paul said that we are created in Christ Jesus to do good works which God prepared in advance for us to do. We're his workmanship is the language he uses. One translation that can be, we're his work of art. So we see every student as a work of art. We see every student as someone made in the image of God. And we know that that's true. Other people may not believe that, but we know that to be the case. And so with humility, we lean into the reality that every single student was created with intentionality and purpose. God did not mess up when he made them. And the simplest part of our job is to get to know those students and help them become the person God created them to be. Mm-hmm. And that really happens in the context of relationships, and that's been the way that LCU has been since its founding in 1957. It is a relationally intense and intentional place, and it's been my privilege as the 7th president to really lean into that. But it's that knowledge that people are created in the image of God.
Yes.
And then just, it's a journey of discovery, not teaching. I remember I was at a conference, 25 years ago at least, and I was a newbie in higher ed. I'd been in ministry and had done 5 years, but now I'm back in an administrative role. And I go to this conference, and I remember the woman said, I still remember Karen Longman, she said, "Now, of course we know," and she's about to drop conventional wisdom that I felt like everybody in the room knew, but I didn't know. Right,
like a pin drop. You could hear a pin drop in the room, right?
And of course we know, and then she said, "We don't get to create anything. God has already done the creating. What we get to do is help students discover who it is that God created them to be." And the light bulb came on for me. It's like, oh my goodness, yes, that's our task. Rather than I had an image kind of like an assembly line. Freshman year, we're going to put this piece on, and then we're going to move them down the line and give this series of experiences and academic rigor, and we'll spit them out on the far end of the assembly line as a graduate, and we will have done some kind of job. And there's still part of that. But when you recognize, okay, all I'm really helping to do is discover, it takes all the pressure off, and put your eyes in a different direction.
I love it. I love it. And I want to dive into that a little bit more in just a second. But first, we do something called Quote of the Day, because I'm a big quote girl. I believe in it. Just you can never get enough inspiration.
Okay.
And so let's see what
this
one. Let's see which one you get.
What did I get here? Happy.
You got the happy card. And what is your quote?
There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. From
Ooh.
Buddha. Okay.
What does that mean to you?
Oh, my goodness. Well, there is no path to happiness. Well, path, I'll spin off a path.
Okay.
I really believe a couple of quotes about that. You don't try to prepare the path for the student. You try to prepare the student for the path. That's one.
I love that.
But one of my big ones is pay attention to who God puts in your path, because we want to influence people. And we want to be used by God to make a difference, but we can't influence everybody. But we can influence people right in front of us.
Yes.
So, you present your day to the Lord and ask Him to use you, and then you just open your eyes and pay attention to who God puts in your path. We're having an interaction right now. I've got an interaction with Al. First time I ever met one of your other guests. So what's God doing in that, and how might I be used? And I used to think about it just, well, how can I bless somebody? But more often than not, it's how can they bless me? What do they have that can help me on my journey?
I love that. That's what I ask for every morning. Is God, just show me today how, and how can you use me to help others?
Yeah.
And you're right, I get blessed back.
Oh, yeah.
Every time.
Well,
every time when you open your eyes to it and see.
That's right. The psalmist said, in the morning I lay my requests before you and wait in expectation. Yes. And that's exactly what you're talking about, just the expectant life of what's God doing today and how can I be involved in what He's doing.
I love it. You have been in this role now as the president, the 7th president at LCU for 2 years. First of all, what does Kay think of, I love your wife. Your wife is such a sweet,
thank you.
Talk about just, someone that you want to just sit and talk with.
Yes.
We need to get her in this chair.
Absolutely, you need to.
What did she think? What do you think of Lubbock now that you're there? You're in this role for a couple of years. I know the people of Lubbock are fantastic. West Texans in general. If you're not from West Texas, you need to come meet some West Texans. They're pretty amazing.
West Texas is special. One of the last parts of the United States, literally, that was ever settled because it was such a rough place and they hadn't discovered the aquifer, so they didn't know there was water down under the ground. And the fierce Comanche Indians held sway, and so it was just rough land, rough Native Americans, and so it wasn't settled. So that frontier spirit is kind of still in the DNA of the place, and it's like Lubbock was only incorporated in 1909. So 110 years, you think about that versus the East Coast. So there is that dynamic frontier spirit, and the problem-solving skills that you had to have to survive. That's still part of the fabric of the people, and we just have absolutely loved it. So we moved here, my first day on the job, April Fool's Day 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. Not an ideal time. But
April Fools.
Yeah. And Kay has always been up for an adventure. She's got a background as a PR professional, was a chief brand officer for an organization that had their main offices in Northwest Arkansas around Walmart. And so she could work from anywhere, and she did. And so she was all in for the adventure. And then when we got to Lubbock, we just fell in love with it. Again, the people drive it, but you've got quality of life things that are just wonderful. Mm-hmm. Every kind of restaurant you would want, great faith community. Obviously Texas Tech is there, and so you've got this college town vibe, all kinds of great quality of life things. Yes. So we fell in love with it. And then I was on the Lubbock Chamber, and just to be involved and get to know people. And about, I guess, maybe a year in, we found out that the long-term CEO of the chamber was going to retire. And I said, Kay, you ought to look at that. She said, I'm not going to do that. But as fate would have it, they asked me to be involved in a new branding of the city. And I said, well, I'll do it, but you really ought to ask my wife. And so she got involved in that as a volunteer, and then was like, wow, this is an amazing place, fell in love with the city and all those, as she got kind of the inside look. And so she applied for the job. So she's the CEO of the Lubbock Chamber.
Oh, that's
so
fantastic.
It's like so fun. More sunny days in Lubbock, Texas than in Miami, Florida. True fact.
Really?
Yes.
Hey, see, you learn a fun fact every day.
That's right. If we just had an ocean, we'd be good to go.
Exactly.
But we love it. It's been fun, wonderful, and it's really driven by the people.
I'm so glad that you love it there. I want to talk a little bit about what you want from every graduate, you'd mentioned, that there's not this plan, right? It's the developing of the character and developing their journey. What do you hope for each and every graduate that walks that stage at the end of the year?
That's an excellent question. Our mission, Lubbock Christian University, is a Christ-centered academic community of learners, transforming the hearts, minds, and hands of students for lives of purpose and service. And it's really, we talked about that discovery, but to launch students, and that's really all we can do is launch them and be part of what good work parents have done when they sent them to us. But launch them out with a sense of purpose and a sense of calling in their lives to go out and just be difference makers. And that really is an exciting thing if they can catch and a sense of that. So one of the things we do is strengths. We take every freshman that comes in and we give them the Strengths Finder instrument from the Gallup organization. So it gives them a knowledge of their strengths. That we're the second year in that process now. So your daughters probably should have done that. You need to ask them about it.
I know that's good conversation to have today.
But
as they're home for fall break.
Yeah. So what are your strengths? And really, that's from the Christian perspective. What are the talents God has put in you? And now, how do you bring those out? How do you go live those? And what I love about strengths is it's not a prescriptive thing that says, okay, here are your strengths. Here's the career you should have. It's here are your strengths. How do you use these in any career?
Right.
So use that, and now the best of the best. We learned this kind of the hard way. You learn what you're really good at, and maybe it took a while. It did for me. But what are you really good at, and now how do you use that? And that's a recipe for the good life. And so turning people loose with a sense of who they are in this world, and to go out and be difference makers. And as we've already talked about, just sanctifying your day to the Lord and watching what you might be able to do to make a difference. And I really think, again, I go back to that, it's all about relationships. It happens one person at a time. We sometimes want to do grand things, but you get a student and get them to realize how important it is to be a good dad, how important it is to be a good mom. Joe Ehrman, that played for the Baltimore Colts back in the day, he said there are all these myths about what the good life really is. But he said it really comes down to relationships.
Again,
my mentor Carl would like
great.
that. How good a husband, father, son, brother, friend, and did you participate in a cause larger than you? So that's what brings meaning and purpose to life, and that's what we want to send students out with. I quote Philippians 1:9-11 all the time, and this is Paul's prayer for the Philippians. This is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you may be able to discern what is best and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ. So I always say you, so that you may discern. We want our students to do the right thing at the right time for the right reason, all on their own.
Yes.
And if we can have that influence and really create the atmosphere where that can happen, then we've done our job.
Oh, you are doing your job, because I see it. I do. And you can step foot on that campus and you see it with the students. I mean, they are just, you can tell they're filled with the Spirit. They really are. They have that joy. They have that kindness that they are doing God's work, and I love that.
Well, and
the teachers too.
Yeah. Well, and that's really, I want to say a word about faculty. It really is faculty and the staff, but the sharing of life. Great quote from a guy named Arthur Holmes that is a significant writer in Christ-centered higher ed. He said, values not just verbalized, but truly incarnated are catching. So when students see it come to life in their professor, when they see this world-class faculty member that could teach anywhere, and they've chosen to teach at LCU, and they're pouring their life into the students, that's where some really neat things happen. And the research all supports that. It's funny. I cut my teeth outside the classroom, but it's the mojo is when you get a student together with a faculty member, and you expect good things in the classroom. When they have a relationship outside the classroom, that's when really special things happen, and that's what happens every day on our campus.
Absolutely. Do you have a moment in your career where you really just kind of had that light bulb, where you had a moment where you saw either a student or it could have been a faculty member, where their life it just changed because of the institution that you were a part of?
Well, it's fun. So in a former life, I ran a residence hall. I had 400 guys in a residence hall.
Boy, I bet you saw some
Oh,
things.
my goodness, yeah. The old line, they asked the senior administrator what he thought of that 8-floor residence hall. He said, it seems to me like it's trouble stacked on top of trouble. And he was right. So there was, I got to see kids in their best and kids in their worst. And then my first formal job when I came back was dean of students. So you see the absolute best students, and then you see the students at their worst, and very few are bad kids. I could count on one hand the kids I thought, that guy's really trouble.
Right.
But you see students at their low points, their high points, and that's the really thing. You got 4 years to really have an influence. One of the sweetest stories, though, is a young man that came from a wonderful background. He was a great kid, but he also had his struggles, and he'd gotten involved in some stuff he shouldn't have been involved in. And was one night he and his friends did some very destructive things on our campus, and we caught them. And we tried to be creative and redemptive. That's another thing that I've learned is how do you redeem this? It's real easy to punish somebody.
Right.
How do you redeem it and help them grow from it? Because we're dealing with 18 to 21-year-olds. The cerebral cortex is just barely getting formed, so you want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Long story short, we gave them a redemptive path. They had to pay for what they'd messed up, but they had a chance to get right. And so we put him out of school. But he came back and finished.
Oh, that's great.
And here's the beautiful part. The kid's now doing ministry.
Oh,
okay?
That is beautiful.
And he's doing ministry in Murray, Kentucky, where my son is playing football at Murray State University. So when my wife and my son go on that campus visit, they go to church, and here's this student that comes up to my son and says, hey, your dad was there for me at a very dark moment. I will be there for you. So I've got that young man.
I'm tears in my eyes.
Yeah.
I mean,
he is pouring into my son all these years later because the light bulb came on for him in a dark moment. And I don't take any credit for that, but it's a beautiful thing, and he's a dear friend of mine now. And so those stories, you forget them, but those they make an impact. And if you and I had a bunch of them I messed up. But those good ones stick with you for a while.
Absolutely. What a full circle moment.
Yeah.
And what a moment of you were the right person at that right time to help him see and make the change that he needed. And look at now how he's blessing so many other people, including your son.
Yeah.
I love that story.
Well, and let me just clarify too, because it is just that moment to be willing. You just had Randy Velarde in here, and baseball. I love baseball, but
yes.
You got to be willing to pitch middle relief, is what I say. Okay, everybody wants to be a starting pitcher. They're the glory guy that comes out and throws smoke and runs, maybe pitches a complete game. Or you want to be the closer. They're the guy that comes in and saves things. Middle relief is when the game is either lost or won, and you're just eating innings, and you're just in there to help the team. And we want the glory job sometimes. Sometimes it's just one little piece. And what I know about that student is his parents had done a phenomenal job. Okay, he had a dark moment, and I got to play a little part in that. And then other people picked it up, and great things happened.
Right.
But am I willing to today do the right thing myself, and then just trust God for the results, and realize He's going to be doing things in lives that are going to go way beyond us? That's the fun part of life in the kingdom.
Absolutely. Let's talk about education, because an educator has such a opportunity to make an impact, just like the story you were telling. What would you say to educators that out there, because the last few years it's been a struggle, right, with education going through a pandemic, and and some of the safety struggles that that teachers are faced with today in today's world. What would you say to them to keep them going down this amazing path that they're on, because they are making such a difference? What motivation would you give them?
I think just recognize the small parts you might be able to play just in one life and one day. And realize that you can be part of a larger tapestry like that. But just research. There's a book by a similar name that's gotten a lot of press, but there's a little book called How College Works. College Works. And I can't tell you the author, but the premise of the book is it's a very few people that make a disproportionately large amount of impact. So I think back to my own college experience, look back at your own. I've already told you about my whole life. There are 4 mentors.
Right.
Okay. Who are the faculty members in your life? There were only a handful.
You're right. Yeah.
And so
That's
be
true.
be one of those. Be the person that can make a difference. And look at every student that's in front of you as the opportunity to make a difference. You don't know what they came out of. You don't know what kind of hard home life they've got. You don't know if they're, in this day and age, coming to you hungry. Quite literally, they might not eat when they're not at school. So how do you make a difference in those lives? And it's just, that's the good life. And there's so much about teaching that is so positive. And you do remember, I think back, it's only a handful, but that handful made a really high impact in my life. So be one of those handful.
That is great advice. And I want to talk a little bit about education, because education has transformed a lot through the years with kids and the and the world of sports. I kind of want to speak to some student athletes too, because your son is a student athlete. Two of them. I was just going to say you have the football and basketball. So you know the student athlete life, and it can be exhausting. It can be hard. There's highs. There's lows. What would you say to parents that have aspiring student athletes, or to parents that have student athletes right now, about the highs and lows of that once they get into college? Because there is a transition. We always call it the transition time, right, from high school to college. What would you speak to those parents? Because I think a lot of people are not ready for it, or have things that come up unexpectedly.
Well, again, I think one of the huge things is something we know, but that life is not about your performance, and life is not about your sport, and don't make your identity anything but your relationship with Christ. I mean, find your identity in Christ, because it's so easy. I'm a football player. I'm a basketball player. My son's 6'11". Every person, you think I'm tall. When I go out with him, I'm like a wallflower, because people are coming up to him like a celebrity.
Right.
And the question they ask is what?
What, you play basketball?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
And I hope you play basketball. And so he's got to deal with that every time he goes out.
Yeah.
And so it's very, and he tells him now, I did.
Yeah.
I played college ball. He made the decision in his 4th year, I'm trying to go to med school. And he was killing it grade-wise, but he said, Dad, I don't know enough. And if I'm going to be a doctor and have somebody's life in my hands, I want to really know this stuff. I don't want to just make a good grade. I want to really know it. And so he said, I've got to either spend more time in the gym to get on the floor, or I got to spend more time in the books to really know what I'm talking about. And I said, well, you do what you want to do. He decided to walk away from it, which I really think is a wise decision. But here's the deal. Everybody's going to walk away at some time.
Right.
You just had Randy Velarde, who had a wonderful career in Major League Baseball. So such a small sliver of every athlete that ever makes it to that highest level.
Yes.
But everybody has to walk away from it sometime. Michael Jordan has to walk away from it sometime.
Right.
John Smoltz had a chance interaction with him. He had his daughter looking at an institution where I used to serve. We had this wonderful day together and walked around campus, and he shared his testimony with me. And this was a great line that stuck. He said, I'm not going to tell you I'm a better pitcher because I'm a Christian, but I'm a better pitcher because I'm a Christian. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, because all my life, my psyche was tied into my performance. If I pitched well, I felt good. If I pitched bad, I felt rotten. And then he said, when I finally became a believer and put my faith in Christ, I recognized it's not about my performance. It's about my relationship with him. So he said, I had the freedom then. If I pitched bad, I wasn't a rotten person. I wasn't a failure as a person. I recognized something bigger. And he said, frankly, that took the pressure off, and I pitched a lot better.
I love
so,
it.
Again, I don't say that's the reason to put your faith in the Lord, but it's the way things actually work. And so at some point you're going to walk away. What are the terms on which you're going to walk away? Yeah. And parents, don't put pressure on the kids. Let them do it if they really want to do it and if they love it. Right. And that's the thing too. I think Cade felt as much, he wanted to make sure he didn't disappoint me. I said, Bud, you're not going to disappoint me. You do what you feel called to do, because that's what's going to please me the most.
Absolutely.
So
I love that. Great
good
advice.
Moment.
It is. We always tell our kids golf is what you do, not who you are.
That's exactly right.
And I think that's important for a lot of student athletes to
right.
remember. It's just part of who
well,
they,
for everybody.
what they do.
Okay, for everybody. I'm not a college president.
Right.
It's
what you do.
Yeah, that's right. It's what you do. It's not who you are.
Yeah.
And so that's and thankful for people to keep you grounded.
Right, exactly. We need those people, don't we?
That's right.
They are little earth angels. I want to talk. We are almost out of time. We have to do our question of the day real
All
quick.
right.
This is just a fun get to know you more
All
question.
right. This is important.
The important
What
card.
is your personal philosophy in life?
Ooh. Oh, I love that. I can't wait to hear this.
Oh, my goodness.
That's going to be great.
Oh, what is your personal philosophy in life? So I've already given you pay attention to who God puts in your path. I would say it is all about relationships, and that fundamental everything drives from, for me, my relationship with God. And if I keep that in line, everything flows out of that. But to not forget that and to not try to do things on your own. So great quotes are pay attention to who God puts in your path. Pay attention to the things that move you deeply, because God is often in the middle of that. And just trying to be aware that we are in God's kingdom right now. We get to participate in that. So having your eyes open and trying to be in step with the Spirit. I don't know if that nails a philosophy,
Perfect.
but that's where I would go.
You've dropped so many beautiful nuggets today because I told you I love quotes, and you have just like dropped quote. I'm just going to have to keep rewinding and listening over and over because I feel like I learned so much by listening to others' philosophy on life and the way they live their life. And it's beautiful the way that the mentors have really affected your life and your life path.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just a beautiful story.
Let me take a second shot on that. What I would say if you philosophy, make light more appealing than darkness. There's another quote, but a better philosophy.
Love it.
So am I living from a center that actually makes my life compelling, that other people would want what I have? That's the essence of the good Christian life.
Yes.
That's a missional kind of life. And you don't fake it.
Yeah.
It's got to be real.
Yeah.
But if it is real, then it's inviting as well. It's winsome.
I love that.
That's what I want to have.
That is great. That is the goal.
Yes.
Absolutely. We're going to ask you a couple fun favorite
Okay,
things.
okay.
What's your favorite restaurant to eat at in Lubbock?
Oh, goodness. Oh, there's so many good ones. I probably Double Nickel if I really want to go. It's a little bit fancier, really great steak. That's really good.
Okay. We'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's great. So, and then there's a lot. Taqueria Atlan is best Mexican in town. It's
Okay.
very authentic.
Oh, good. I can't wait to try both of those. Favorite book?
Oh, well, Randy stole the Bible, and that's the right question. But The Divine Conspiracy, Dallas Willard. It's pithy. You can't read it lightly, but it's absolutely the best book I've ever read. It's just magnificent.
Okay, wonderful. Favorite podcast? Do you listen to a lot of podcasts?
Well, clearly, it's the Krista Escamilla podcast.
Thank you.
Either that
Thank
or
you.
Keegan Stewart's LCU podcast.
I was going to say, let's give the plug
That's
there.
right.
Keegan does a great job on the LCU
he's so
podcast.
good.
I love it.
Yeah, he's a brilliant young man.
Yes. Well, thank you for that. Favorite Bible verse? And I know I think you've already mentioned a couple.
Not by might, not by power, but by my spirit. It's Zechariah 4:6. So the whole idea is you're not going to do this on your own. You got to have not by might, not by power, but by my spirit, which gives you great hope that God is in control, and I've got to keep that in mind.
Yes. You and I both want to see people fulfill and achieve their dreams.
Yeah.
Do you have a dream you have not achieved yet?
Oh, great question. A dream I've not achieved yet. Well, I really want to. The reason I do what I do, I had a wonderful undergraduate experience where I came of age in a Christ-centered environment. I just want to perpetuate that for the next generation. So to make sure that LCU and institutions like her are on the best possible footing, so that students, we're coming up on our 70th anniversary in 2027. That's our platinum anniversary. Our strategic plan is our platinum plan.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But I want to perpetuate, make sure on my watch that we do everything we can to make sure it's there for another 70 years. So that's kind of my dream, is to really make the decisions now. Great line that our provost quotes all the time. I think it's from Bezos, but the line is, the life you're enjoying right now is a product of the decisions you made 3 to 5 years ago. So trying to make decisions now that will set the institution up not just for 3 to 5 years down the road, but for 75 years down the road.
That is true. We love that. See, another great quote. They're just coming at you all day long today. I love it.
Nothing original, so that's just the truth. Huh?
But are there any that are?
That's
I mean,
right.
really, that's the beauty. We learn from everyone else, and that's why I love this podcast, because I want our goal, or our goal here is for us to share stories and learn from each other, so that we can all help live our best life. Because we learn from others' quotes, or and we you and I got our quotes from someone else,
That's right.
So let's just keep sharing them and going. Okay, favorite coffee shop?
Oh, Oh, I'm a Starbucks fiend, so I've been ruined by that strong Starbucks coffee. So I
Good, isn't
just
it?
have to go with the big brand.
Okay, sounds good. Finally, favorite nonprofit. At the end of our show, we always give back to a nonprofit, and we make a donation on our show's behalf. Do you have a favorite nonprofit?
Well, Lubbock Christian University is my favorite nonprofit. There's also the food bank there in Lubbock that really does some really good work, so that's another one.
Okay, fantastic. And is there any way that the West Texas community can support LCU?
Well, the biggest thing is send us students, because
Yes.
that's been our bread and butter, is this region, and the outcomes are just amazing. When I first got in this role, I started to ask the questions. Okay, how do we really do? You hear the PR of the interview process,
Right.
but our outcomes, and your daughters are getting a world-class education. Our education graduates for the last 3 years running have had 100% job placement. Our pre-professional programs, our like vet school, we get students into vet school at 6 times the national average.
Wow.
So I've got dear friends in Columbus, Ohio. Their daughter's looking for a place to go to school. I said, she wants to be a vet. There's no better place to come than Lubbock Christian University.
Right.
So that's what I always challenge people to do, is look at the outcomes, and you can see them on our website. But you're going to get a world-class education in a Christ-centered environment, and it's a really good thing. So I think that's what I'd want people to know about. You're not sacrificing anything. In fact, you're gaining. You've got class sizes of about 20. You're going to get the personal touch, and you're going to get a really good education, but you're going to be around people that are going to make you better, and it's going to transform your life, and you're going to carry that with you for the rest of your life.
I could not agree more. And I know, speaking for my husband, Al, and I, we are so thankful that Aspen and Allie are getting the education they're getting, because we see it every time, when your kids come home for break or they come home for summer. I mean, you can just see the growth. And we see it in our youngest, who's only been there a couple of months. I mean, you really do. You really feed the whole spirit and mind, body, and soul of the child.
And we could tell that story. That's really a God thing, how they got there.
Yes.
But exactly what you just did. Keep telling that story. That's the biggest thing. It's the third-party endorsement. You'd expect the president of the university to come in and tout the virtues of the university. But
if you didn't, we would think
right.
something's wrong, right?
But now here you are a consumer of our product, and you're pleased with it. So keep telling that story, and that's what I'd tell people. Come look and experience it, but then keep telling the story. We've got to get the story out, because it really is a great place.
And a quick snippet of that story is our daughter Aspen was supposed to go to St. Edward's because of COVID. They cut the golf program. She looked for a place, and Coach Belt offered her a spot there. Totally God's plan, because she has just blossomed and evolved and has been the perfect place for her. And then, of course, her sister wanted to join her. So there is the long story short. But it has been a huge blessing for our family, and we could not be thankful enough. Al has a question.
You can have one of it. I think that what Scott said, come look,
Yes.
is so important, because we grew up here in West Texas, drove by Lubbock Christian over and over, but when we came to look, we were like, wow.
Yeah.
I think that's so important.
Absolutely. Go take a tour, go on campus, because once you do, you're hooked. I mean, you really are. You see it.
And that's the thing. We've got a block of frontage on 19th. We've got this giant campus that fans out. People don't know that we're there. I had a guy this week that's chairman of a board for a nonprofit, and he said, I brought my daughter. First time I'd ever been on your campus. So that's the thing. Come and see. Come and see.
All right. Well, in conclusion, Dr. McDowell, is there anything that coming into this, you were like, oh, I hope I get this out? When I'm sitting there, and I know you just found out yesterday that you were going to be interviewed, but is there anything that we didn't get to talk about that you thought, oh, I really hope this comes out in the podcast?
That's a great thing. You give me too much credit. I think we've talked really well about the good things that are going on. I would just want to make sure that people recognize how important it is to do what you said you'd try to do every day, and that is get up and sanctify your day to the Lord, and then just see what God might do. And I do that too rarely. I know I should do it every day and then be on watch every moment, but you get distracted.
Right.
And I would just say, try to not get distracted. I come in, my office has the quote from Hebrews 12 that our founder, F.W. Maddox, when he came, his inaugural address was, fix our eyes on Jesus. And I need to be reminded to continually do that throughout the day. So
Yes.
that would be what I'd want to leave people with. Just keep fixing your eyes on Jesus. And when you get distracted, that's okay. Look back
Yes.
and get recalibrated, and then live on purpose, live intentionally. And it's I'm convinced that that's how differences are made.
Absolutely. Dr. McDowell, thank you so much. I've so enjoyed our time together.
Thank you.
Like I said, I really have enjoyed all the little nuggets you've dropped throughout the day, and I want to live my life on purpose. And if I get distracted throughout the day, I'm going to remember your quote on your wall, and I'm going to fix my eyes
There
on
you
Jesus.
go.
So thank
That's
you
good
so much
stuff.
for that. And if you would like to go to LCU, call them. It's easy. You can apply. But you could go to the LCU campus. They have a great admissions department there. I know that you have a great online presence as well if you're out of town, if you're listening, because we have listeners all over the world.
Yeah.
All over the world. If you're in France right now and you're listening, you want to go to Lubbock Christian, because I know you have a lot of people. You're really educating the world now,
Yeah.
especially with athletes now
Right.
coming in. They come in from all over. I think there is someone from France
There
on the golf
probably
team.
is.
I think
That's
there
right.
is. But look online, come to Lubbock Christian. and
LCU.edu.
there you go, lcu.edu. That was good. Good. We got to get that out there. But thank you so much for your time. We
Thank you,
appreciate you
Krista.
sharing your story and for what you're doing for children. I say children, but really they're young adults
Yeah.
all over the world. We appreciate you,
Thank you so much.
educating them. Thank you. And thank you for your time today. I hope that you've enjoyed the show. I know I have, and I just love that you're choosing to come back week after week. Remember, if there's someone you'd like to see in our chair next, let me know. You can reach out on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, and nominate someone that you want to hear their story. Or if it's you, nominate yourself. Why not? Thanks again for your time, and thank you to our sponsors, Rig ID Workwear, Midland Cap Company, and also joincapclub.com. In the meantime, remember my favorite quotes. That's right. We've got to dream big, believe, and never give up. You make it a great day.